welcome back to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and I'm really happy to be back in Fragile World by Kerby Rosanes, where we're going to continue on with this scene of the penguins on the Galapagos Islands. And as you can see, I have done my homework. I have finished off the left hand side of the sky as promised. So today we're going to spend a bit of time working on these clouds and also do a little bit of work on these rock formations above the water. Below the water is going to be a slightly different beast. So that's going to be the focus for today. Just before we get started with that, I have added some penny items to the stash shop moving sale. We are now 3 weeks out from moving, so we're getting down to the wire. Basically, they would be free. I did talk about having postage only items, so low value items where whoever wanted to buy would just cover the mailing of them. The online store software that I use will not let you put in a price of 0 on the items, so it's an arbitrary penny. So it's things like erasers, sharpeners, single markers, that kind of thing. They're nice little add-on items if you're in at the stash shop buying anything else for yourself. There is still a large range of items in the moving sale and more stuff will be added this Sunday, and you can check that out. The link to the shop is down in the description. We are back with our Prismacolor pencils. I had an absolute field day with these last time. So from the last set, we have the Sunburst Yellow, which was this darker yellow colour here. And in addition to that, for the clouds, I am adding in PC 1021, which is Jade Green, and also PC 1088, which is Muted Turquoise. So we're going to use these pencils oh so subtly, just to add a little bit of something to these clouds up here. So again, as per, I'm going to start in the top right hand corner because I'm left-handed. One thing I will say is if you're going to use a really soft pencil like a Prismacolor or even the Derwent Colour Soft, for example, it's always a good idea to have something under your hand at this stage because the colour is quite smooshy and it tends to transfer. So just a wee scrap of paper. Under normal circumstances I would use tracing paper because you can see through it and you can see underneath, but just something to rest my hand on while I'm working here. So let's start off in here. So I'm trying to think about these clouds, how far away they are, how close they are. So these ones look as if they're a little bit further in the distance than, say, for example, this big fluffy one here. So I'm going to be using that to my advantage as well. So I just want to show you these colours on this little scrap of paper. If you use them really lightly, it's the tiniest hint of colour, but it's there. The muted turquoise in particular, if you go really lightly with it, can give you a really nice shadow colour. So I don't know about y'all's observations of clouds, but the darker parts tend to be in at the bottom. So I am going to take one of these pencils. Now, it actually doesn't, I'm going to use these interchangeably and it's just to give us a bit of variation. But I am going to put a little soft C shape following the curve of that cloud. And I'm going to build it up in here. So this is like the lightest of light pressures because we want this to be really subtle. And then I'm going to take this orange and just in a few spots, not on every curve of the cloud, but just in a few spots, I'm just going to pop a tiny wee bit there. So you can see it looks as if you've got a bit of a reflection of what's going on down here up on this cloud. We don't need to have this on every single section. Now you can go a bit bolder with that if you want. I would tend to, like maybe one of the clouds in behind, like so this part here is more like a wispy cloud. So maybe I'm thinking to myself that that might be a little bit darker in there. So this is the muted turquoise again, so I could maybe push that a wee bit, you know. Now I'm changing to the jade pencil here. Just a little bit of colour. And you can see there's that wee reflection there. So what I'm really trying to express here is the fact that these clouds just aren't sheet white. So if you zoom out now, you can only see a tiny little bit, but that's kind of what I want. So let's continue on then, and we can work on some of these sections here. Wonder what these two are looking at. There must be something going on off on the side here. Now I will save the this reflective colour. I wouldn't put it on every section as well, because what that does is it means that every part of the cloud that's jutting out is jutting out exactly the same angle so that that they would all catch the light, and that's kind of not the way clouds work. So be very selective with your reflection colour. Oh, excuse me. There's quite a lot of sneezing going on just now. I am ashamedly kicking up a lot of dust just while we're packing and things. We're kind of getting down to the wire now. By the time you guys see it, we'll be 2.5 weeks out. And the more I start to pack stuff up, the more I unearth, shall we say. I've always known that this house is a really dusty house. It's a big old house. It's very drafty. There's holes everywhere. I didn't quite comprehend to what extent until I've actually kicked most of the dust up. And it is atrocious. One of the things I'm really looking forward to is not having such a dusty house. The cottage that we're going into is a bit newer, shall we say. It's a bit more modern build is probably the wrong phrase, but it's more modern than this house. The one thing that is going though is there's carpets in every room of the house apart from the kitchen. Maybe the bathrooms? I'm not sure about the bathrooms. And over time we will need to change those floors. I don't like having carpet. There's certain rooms I do like having carpet, and then there's rooms I'm like, no, you don't belong in here. So we have bigger fish to fry today. We have other problems. We have had no water for nearly 24 hours now, and apparently there's a burst or a leak, and it's only affecting the farm in the immediate area. So it's basically only us and 2 other houses. Possibly 3 actually. I haven't spoken to the neighbour over the other side of the road. And they can't find where it is, and they're still looking for it. So for the foreseeable, we have no water, which is not a problem for us humans because we are like prepared for stuff like this. We've got a lot of bottled water. It's a problem for the cows. Thankfully, mercifully, it's very overcast today and it rained overnight. We've had a really, really long dry spell and a warm spell. And if that was the case, we would be in trouble because cows drink a lot of water. So at least it's cooler for them today. They aren't agitated yet. Cows are pretty good at going without water. They're comfortable for a fairly extensive period of time, but that's going to start to run out today. So we're really just hoping that Scottish Water get their finger out and try and fix things. The guys that come out, like, our water goes off all the time, like all the time. That's something else I'm not going to miss about being here. So we're almost on first name terms with a couple of the engineers, and to be fair, most of them are a really good bunch and they're trying their best. But I'm like, there's only so many places a leak can be if it's only affecting 3 houses. So why haven't you all found it? I don't think they worked overnight. I think they thought, it'll be fine, we'll find it in the morning, because if the engineers were here overnight, I'm pretty sure they would have found it by now. We're also quite smug in the fact that we know where a lot of our drains are, so we know the plumbing system quite well, so they can't build shit, but they kind of know that as well, so yeah. As you can see, it is very, very subtle. We don't want too much going on with the clouds, but we want something going on with the clouds. So if you look at what we've done here, I might add in a little bit further up, and then have a look at this bunch over here. You know, it's a nice subtle difference. It does make a difference. Okay, so I would imagine that the reflections on here will be much more intense because it is directly above the light source. So let's go a little bit harder with our yellow pencil here. You know, because that is basically going to uplight that cloud. So we might have a little bit in here as well. And then we can add in the jade and the turquoise colours wherever we feel like. See, they're so subtle, these 2 pencils. Everyone associates Prismacolors with really bright, you know, vibrant pigmented colours. And yes, they are, but these 2 pencils, if you go steady with them, it's the same as the Deco Yellow, I suppose, a slightly desaturated colour. You can get some really nice effects with them. They don't have to be, you know, really sort of in your face, which I for one quite like. This little cloud in here as well. I don't know where this one came from, but we'll make it a little bit more exciting. So moving on over then to this last set. That's a bit more complicated over here. Right, we've already got some colour transfer. There is some orange there. I'm going to see if I can erase it. I've got this set. This is a Derwent Slim Eraser. I've grown to really like this little eraser. This came in a subscription box. I find it really good for just getting into slightly tighter spaces where a kneadable eraser won't cut it in terms of the actual erasability. You know, if you need a bit more of a firm eraser. And that's taken that orange off beautifully. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Derwent. That was a later find. You know how when we get these subscription boxes, I'm always a bit kind of like, yeah, we've had one of these before. This was fairly recent and I hadn't had one before and I got disproportionately excited about it. Good erasers, I like them. Okay, so again, maybe a little bit of light here. I would say it's probably likely to be about the size of it though. That's not, there's going to be much more than that. So the things that I have organised this week, I again, you know, apologies for the lack of exciting chat. We're moving, so it's kind of like taking over everything just now. I have organised an oven cleaner, as in a professional person that will come and clean my oven. The oven is staying behind. It's one of the range cookers, you know. So I said to Mr. Jem, there is one thing I am not doing before we leave, and that is I am not cleaning that oven. I do not clean ovens. I will pay someone as much as it takes to come and do it for me. A lot of the companies that do this now use much more eco-friendly cleaning products, whereas the stuff that I would buy to clean it would probably like melt your fingernails off given half a chance. So I figured that would be a better option, so I've got that booked. So that's, mentally I'm starting to tick these things off the list. We have arranged for the council to come and uplift our sofa as well. We're not taking our sofa. It has seen better days and we've been hanging on to it because we love it, but it's time for it to go. So stuff like that, we're starting to get into the organisational part. For my proper job, the payment date that I get paid on has changed. So I've had to go and change all my direct debits, but I'm not ready to change my address yet. So I'm kind of doubling up on stuff, but unfortunately a lot of my direct debits come off like the day before I'm going to be getting paid now. So I had to change them because that's all going to come about like in the midst of us actually moving, and I don't have time to deal with that. Internet service provider is dragging their heels, and that's the part I'm most interested in because I need to know whether we're going to be able to live stream or not at the new place, and I also need to know when I'm going to be back online, and they are dragging their heels. So I've figured out if you phone the main, the central service number, that it's usually the same lady that mans that number, that attends the telephone. And she's the person to get a hold of if you want stuff done. Don't phone anybody else. So she's very lovely. Her name's Angela. She's a very nice lady. And she knows my voice now. That's how bad it's got. Is that you, Jem? I'm like, yes, it's me. So, it's pretty bad when you're on first name terms with the lady on the desk at your internet provider. But if that's what we have to do to get stuff done, that is what we are going to do. Because it's a business line. It's not even, it's not domestic internet. I pay for a business line. So, anyway, we'll get there with that. We will get there with that. There's all these little crinkly bits in here, and I feel like that should have a bit more something about it. So I can't bring you any exciting news on that front, unfortunately. I was kind of hoping I would be able to tell you something in terms of that. I don't even know when I'm getting the new internet installed at this point because I still haven't heard back from anyone. But it was late on yesterday afternoon. I spoke to the lovely lady Angela, so I'm expecting some sort of correspondence from someone at some point today. So that is our clouds. Quite happy with that. This is one of these things that quite often, once I've finished the picture, I'll go back and mess about with this if it looks, obviously as we add colour, the delicacy of these clouds gets pushed further and further back, which is kind of what you want because they're in the background. But sometimes it can almost get to the stage where it's a bit pointless. So you might want to go in and bring out some of these colours a little bit more once you're finished. So I always kind of have that in my head as we sort of shuffle along. We're going to tackle the rocks here above the water. I looked at lots and lots of pictures of the Galapagos Islands. I have never been. The rock formation situation is quite confusing because there seems to be lots of different types of rocks. I observed a lot of reddish grey colours, a lot of dark grey colours, and then a lot of sandy, paler rock formations. So for the purposes of this and thinking about how we're going to tackle the fact that half of this is underwater, I'm going to go with greyish blue colours. I might put in a bit of red, but I haven't really decided yet. Okay, so we need to pick some colours. I am really, you guys know what I'm like. I've normally got all of this planned out, and when I was looking at these pictures, it really threw me for a loop. So I'm completely undecided here. And I kind of want to stick with the grey and blue idea because the water's going to be quite turquoisey. Again, if you've seen any pictures of the Galapagos Islands, the water is fantastic. The other thing I'm thinking as well is I can incorporate these cloud colours in as well. Even the jade green would work really well in with some greyish blues. I'm going to take Cool Grey 70. I'm going to take Cool Grey 30. Just a little point on approximation here. If we look at these greys compared to this grey up here, this is a very, very bluish grey. This is the slate grey. These don't look very blue next to that one. But If you take them in context next to the warm greys and the French greys, you can see that there's bluish tones in those greys, and that's kind of where we're going. So I'm going to pick out, I'm going to go slate grey, cool grey 70 and cool grey 30. And we'll pop in a little bit of the cloud colours that we've used as well. I am just going to dig those out of my trusty pencil case here. It's actually needing a wee bit of a wipe. I'm going to wipe all this down. It is a bit grotty looking. It's very well used, this one though. Right, okay, first things first. That light edge there. Now you can see Kerby has left a lot of hatching here. That shows us the facets of the rock, so that helps us pick colours. But also, it lets us know how dark to go with our darks as well, because he's kind of helping out. So I am going to put a light layer of that sunburst right there, because as far as I'm concerned, that facet is facing out to where the light is coming from. You know, there's just light bouncing about there generally. So then take my lightest colour, which is going to be the 30% cool grey, and I'm just going to pop a little bit over the top of that. So in the darkest areas, so you can see where the hatching is really tight, that's where I'm going to employ this 70% cool grey. So in this first area, I would say probably these sections here. There's maybe a couple of parts in there where there's a little bit more going on. Okay, and then we've got the slate grey. So I'm going to use these for the hatched areas that are not quite as heavily hatched as the ones we've just done. Oh my god, that was a terrible explanation. The mid-tone areas, there we go. Come on, Jem. So you can see there the areas where there's hardly any hatching, that's where I'm going to use the 30%. And we can mix these colours. There's nothing stopping us blending these together, because we know that Prismas are good for that. Now, for me personally, I would just go a little bit, you know, about a section at a time here kind of thing. Maybe there's a little bit of light there. I wouldn't say that would be too much there. And, oh, wrong one. We can just work section by section, which is my preference. Again, that's quite a lot. You know, that's a lot of rock there, so let's just start. Again, probably not the best idea for me starting at this side, but I wanted to show you the you know, the reflection, the colour type thing. So if we do this here and just literally work a facet at a time, we can get through this quite quickly. I'm feeling that this 30% might be just a little bit too delicate. So there you go. If you see, if we go a rock at a time, then we can concentrate. The other thing I like about having sections like this is you can walk away from them and go and do other stuff. So you can literally colour one rock. You know, you could be doing this one here, spend a minute and a half doing it, and then go back to other stuff that you have to do in your daily life, and then the next time. I always liken it to a jigsaw puzzle. You know how some people set a jigsaw puzzle out on a table, and maybe every time they walk past they just like plonk another little piece in? That you can do that with colouring pages like this, and I think it's fantastic. I'm trying to decide whether this is a rock or part of a foot. I think it looks like a bit of rock. It is now. What I want to do now that I can see that little section, I want to darken the darkest parts, because I feel that they're not dark enough. Like, I just feel like it needs a bit more contrast, especially round the bottom of the rocks here. This is going to be wet because obviously it's the water line, and that water is going to be lapping up against them. So along this line here, I really want to make that a good bit darker and bring it, you know, a little bit further up. Yeah, that's better. And that you'll see that will become more, obviously more uniform the further round that you get with your rocks. So that's us as well. We are now not only counting down to the move, but we are on the countdown for Jock's X-ray. 2 weeks' time, we will be booking him in to get checked over to see how his, I call it his scaffolding, to see how that's settling in. He does have a plate and 3 pins in his leg. Normally, if he was a younger dog, they would be taking that out at some point. I think he said sometimes it's after like a year or 18 months. They remove it when the knee has like sorted itself out. But in Jock's case, because of his age, they just leave it in. Like, she just kind of like lives there. This is basically his last X-ray to make sure that everything's A-okay. And if he gets the go-ahead, then we can start getting back to normal with exercise for him, which would be absolutely fabulous, because I feel like he's really missing out now. And because of that, Pip's missing out as well. And I just think it's really, really unfair on both of them. So we're really looking forward to that. He is doing great on it. Sometimes when he gets up, if he's been lying still for long periods of time, he is a wee bit stiff on it, but he's a retired working dog. He's like that anyway. You know, he's like that on his other leg, on his good leg, and on his front legs. And it's just a combination of obviously working outside for all those years and getting to that stage now, because Jock's going to be 11 this year, which isn't really old for a collie, but for a working collie, that's you know, you're kind of getting up there a wee bit, especially for a kennelled working collie. It lived outside when he was working. I'm not upset about that at all. We give him joint supplements as well, which really helps. You know, that makes a huge difference. So he's doing okay, but we just want to kind of like push on a little bit now and get him back to normal, because I think he's nearly ready. We have to go very cautiously though. You can't just, you know, jump straight back to what he was doing before. You've got to kind of build it up over a number of weeks. We're slowly starting to reintroduce the toys in the house. I told you about the snakies last time. We've pulled out another few toys as well, much to Pip's joy. Like she's very excited about the toy situation. And Jock's kind of getting back into it too, so that's nice. But this just, it feels like, we were talking about it the other night, and I was saying to Mr. Jem, it feels like a lifetime ago that Jock had that surgery. Like, it really, really does. And the reality is, it's not actually been that long. It's only been like 8 weeks or something. I'm trying not to count, to be honest, but it feels as if this has been going on forever. And it's like, oh, can we just get to the bottom of this? Can we just get to the end? So I am super, super looking forward to what's going on with that. If his x-rays come back and the situation is not good, then we have a lot of travelling on our hands, because we're going to be moving the week after, and if he needs any sort of corrections or that kind of thing, we are going to have to travel 2 hours up the road, because obviously it's a complicated surgery, and you want the surgeon that did the surgery to be looking at the corrective measures. You're not going to start off and go to a completely different vet. So there's that. But I think, you know, that we would just do that. There's absolutely no question about that. And that's never been up for debate. So fingers crossed we might have to make one more trip back up, which is fine. He is desperate to run about in a field, like he really is. He keeps looking longingly over the fences when we go out for a wee 5-minute toddles just now. And you can't risk it. I don't think he's ever going to be back to, you know, like running about like a puppy, but I say he's not a puppy anyway, so that would be an unrealistic expectation. But I would like to be able to let him out into a field and he would go and, you know, like have a canter round, because that's what he likes to do. He just goes back into sheepdog mode. It's really funny. I would like that for him, to be able to go and take himself off in a wee jolly and have a run around and, you know, not be injured after it. Wait and see. But that's going to be a joyous moment. I always tell the story, and I don't know why, but it's one of those things that it really hits me in the feels every time. When we had Mist, that was our original working dog with the one eye. She was my first working dog, and nobody will ever replace Mist. And she was the reason that we started the cave. When she had her eye out, she lost a fight with a sheep that had horns, basically, and she got a bit of rage, and she tried to kind of like square go it, and it came off worst. Well, actually, to be fair, the sheep came off worst, but she didn't come out unscathed. So when she had her eye out, one of the things that you've got to watch for is elevated blood pressure. Obviously, if you have a wound or an injury or anything like that, you want to try and keep your blood pressure down, so it's like no strenuous activity for the first wee while. And again, telling that to a working dog's like asking them not to breathe. Like, it's really difficult. So when Mist finally got the green light to start exercising, and I mean like properly, not back to work, but exercising, the place where we were was a really hilly farm. Obviously we had a lot of sheep, and there was this one field, and it was like down in the glen, and it was just a long thin strip beside a river. So I said to Mr. Jem, like, why don't we take her down there where it's on the flat? Because we weren't sure like how her depth perception and everything was going to be. Obviously, because it takes a wee while to adjust after you've had an eye out. So I was like, why don't we take her somewhere flat just to see how she gets on, and then we can kind of go from there. So he was like, yeah, right, okay, let's do that then. So she jumped on the back of the quad bike, and we toddled off down. And when we got down onto the flat into this field, I turned round and I said to her, I gave her a sheepy dog command, and I told her away to me. And do you know that way she kind of went to jump off the bike, and then she did a double take, and she looked at me as if to say, really? What? There's no sheep here. And I was like, on you go. So she jumped down and she started to run, and she ran and she ran and you should have seen her face. I wish I'd had a video of it. It was just like sheer joy and nothing else. So we're driving along on the quad bike and she's running along beside the quad bike, and she kept taking off like she was going absolutely flat out. And she was the happiest little dog for that. Like, you could tell, like, immediately how much she'd missed it. And it was so nice just to see her running about like that, because that's what she was built to do. Like, genetically, that's what they're programmed to do. And it's just, that's like one of my favourite things in the world, is watching collies run in a field, because that's what they're supposed to be doing. And that was a very, very nice moment, because we had no idea how she was going to be after having her eye. No idea. She was going to be after having her eye out, and she was 100% not bothered. So that was really good. That made me really happy, because she was quite a nervous dog. She wasn't well adjusted outside of sheep work. The guy that we got her from, as I say, had we known, we'd never have bought a dog from him. But she was not well socialised, and she had quite a lot of distrust of humans, and I don't think he was abusing her. That's very strong, but I don't think she was particularly well cared for. In the human sense, I think she probably just had food thrown down to her, and worked, and, you know, was praised for working, and that was it, kind of thing. And it took us a long time, and we were really concerned that the accident was going to knock her confidence, and that she, you know, she might not want to go near a sheep again. My God, we were wrong. We were so wrong. We affectionately decided after that point that when she was really going hard with the sheep, she was just getting a bit of sheep rage. You know, she was trying to get some revenge for losing an eye. She was such a good girl. So that brings me back to Jock. You know, I just get this feeling that he's been left out for so long now, because it's been months and months and months. And I think actually going back out into a field and being able to run about and stuff, I think he's going to absolutely love it. So I am optimistic, but I'm trying not to be too optimistic, because, well, we all know how that goes, don't we? I'm just really glad that this has happened at the age that he is. I would hate for this to have happened to him being a younger dog, because he is a little bit more settled now. You know, he's kind of got a bit, I call it the geriatric can't be arsedness. You know, you see him kind of looking at stuff sometimes and going, and then he goes, nah, and then he just sighs and sits down, and you're like, yeah, that's an old dog thing. So at least we've been able to keep him reasonably quiet. But yeah, the time has come, you know. There's only so long you can do that. And we're really ready. We're more than ready. But he's such a well-behaved boy. He's such a good boy. I've always said that, like, we've been really lucky with our dogs, with the exception of Woo, the Jack Russell, but that was just the Jack Russell in her. I always used to say when I was getting the dogs to do something, there was only one dog I had to tell more than once, and obviously that was Woo, that was the Jack Russell, because they've got that little stubborn, you know, like terrier streak in them, and she thought she knew better. But the collies are so easy. They're literally permanently waiting instruction, because that's what they're built to do, and it makes them really easy to train. And I hate it, like, when you see people are like, oh, you know, collies can be really funny, oh, they've got a nasty streak in them, and I'm like, no. Collies are one of the easiest dogs to train, and if you have time to give them physical and mental stimulation, they're great. They make great pets, and I hate it when people say that they're meant to be herding dogs. They're very loyal. They're very easy to train. They will protect an area, especially if you get a female. They are very protective, and obviously if you've got kids and stuff, they're great. They'll go forever with the kids, and then there's no higher risk than there is with any other breed. You know, having a dog near children. And I really hate that. There's loads of breeds though that get a really bad reputation, and it used to be it was Staffordshire Bull Terriers, and Staffies are great dogs. The dogs aren't the problem, it's the owners that are the problem. And don't get me wrong, every now and then you do just get a nasty dog, like it does happen, but that can happen with any breed, it's not specific to collies or whatever. And one of our posties, our lady postie, she's terrified of dogs. She's been bitten a couple of times quite badly, and she knows that our dogs won't touch her, but when someone comes to the property, Pip barks, and she's, for a little dog, you know, for a little collie, she's got a big bark. And it absolutely terrifies the postie, even though she knows that Pip would never touch her. You know, that she can't help it, like she actually can't help it. And that's what she was saying. She said it's quite interesting, because when she's been bitten, it's never been a farm dog. It's actually been dogs in people's gardens. So I don't know how we got into the conversation, but when I was talking to her about it, and apparently the number of dog bites goes up in the summer. And this is because the obviously nice weather, the dogs tend to be outside more. But also the kids are off school as well. And the kids are all playing and, you know, like running about, having a good time, and there's a bit of screeching or whatever, and it winds the dogs up. So if a dog does have a bite tendency, that's going to be elevated. And there's quite a few of the posties who have, you know, see the same dogs more or less every day and have had no problems with them and end up getting bitten during the summer. So I thought that was very interesting information. It's amazing the things that you find out. But I do our postie, like I do my best, and I always say to her, look, don't feel like you have to, you know, you can just sit the post somewhere if the dogs are about. And my dogs don't get loose in the yard or anything like that. They're always under supervision. But, you know, maybe if I've been out walking them or whatever, and I've always said to her, if you come into the yard and the dogs are loose, just hand the post to someone, or you can sit it on a ledge somewhere. You know, it's fine. We don't expect you to put it through the door. So she just does try her best, but you can see it in her face. She's like, oh no, keep the dog away from me. It's such a shame as well, because Pip would Pip would love her to death before she would bite her. And I feel sorry for people like that don't get the experience of the affection of a dog because of what's happened, because I feel like they're missing out. Okay, let's have a wee look. If I just want to zoom out a little bit now to show you what that looks like. So I think our rocks are looking fairly good, and hopefully you can see the addition of that slate grey. That's going to tie in really nicely, as I said, because there's going to be a lot of like turquoisey-ness going on under here. And all of the plants and everything are here. I'm going to make really, really bright colours. So there's basically going to be a strip of ridiculous colour along the bottom here with this turquoise water in between. So I feel like that's quite a nice, you know, this sort of muted contrast again, because the sky's quite colourful as well. That was kind of like my thinking behind the balance between the colours. But I'm very pleased with the colours that we've picked, considering I didn't actually plan this out before I started. So let's crack on. We'll get this little bit finished here, and then I'll do what I did last time, and I'll finish the left-hand page before we get to the next video, because this is very much of a muchness here. You know, I'm doing the same thing over and over. I'm just chatting as we go. So again, this is just just showing you that you can use your Prismacolors, and they don't have to be like absolutely outrageous in terms of colour. You can get some quite subtle results with them. I am very, very fond of sort of darker moody blue, so again the slate grey is kind of a colour that I would gravitate towards. I have organised for this weekend. I do actually have something in my social calendar, which in itself is very rare. But my neighbour and friend who had a wee baby back at the beginning of the year, so this is the herdsman's girlfriend, and our neighbours that stay across the yard from us. She messaged me the other day, and I've kind of left her alone because she's a first time mum, and she's, you know, back and forth to her parents and her sisters a lot with the baby, and I just don't want to pester her. Sometimes I bump into her when she's out walking the dog, and, you know, we'll walk together or whatever, but I've always just said to her, look, you know that I'm here if you need a hand with anything, or you want some help or some respite, you know, just give me a shout kind of thing. But apart from that, kind of left her to her own devices. So she messaged me the other day, and she's like, I know you're really busy and you're packing and everything. She's like, but do you fancy a little afternoon hanging out just before you go? She's like, if you're too busy, I completely understand. I just thought it might be nice for us to, you know, hang out and play some Nintendo Switch or something before you leave. And I was like, absolutely. So this weekend, I think the boys are actually going out for a pint or three. So that would be the equivalent of Mr. Jem's like leaving do. Not that he's having a party or anything, but he'll go out for a few drinks with the boys, and we can sit and play Mario Kart and drink Jack Daniels or wine or something. That sounds pretty good to me. So we're going to do that at the weekend. So I'm looking forward to that. Mario Kart, they've released new tracks like sort of periodically over the last 12 months. And the latest release I haven't even played. I haven't even tried the tracks. And we both, me and my neighbour, both really like a bit of Mario Kart. So we're going to do that. Because obviously she's not had much chance either with having a newborn. But she was telling me the other day that he's kind of started to settle into a wee routine now. So she started to settle in, and she looks a lot less tired. Like she looks really good. I think the baby will be 5 months. It'll be coming 5 months. So they're kind of getting into, you know, their own little pattern and things. And he's sleeping through the night and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, that's crazy. So she's got times now where she can just sit and chill and put her feet up because she's kind of got everything under control. So, but I think her mum's looking after the baby next weekend. So, yeah, that'll be nice. A nice little change. Because I had no inclinations. Mr. Jem did ask me if I wanted to go out to the pub for a pint with the boys, because I'm usually with the boys. I am that person. I've always been one of the boys, but I've got no inclination for it. I really don't. And it could, because I know as well, like, Mr. Jem will want to have a good couple of pints. And if I do that, like, the next day's not productive for me at all, and it's just not worth it. I don't mind having a blowout once in a while, but I actually don't like the feeling of being drunk. I like to be like a tiny bit squiffy, and that's like as far as I go. And I know that if we go out, it won't get rowdy, but we'll drink a lot more than intended. And then I'll end up with a hangover, and then I'll just mooch about the next day, and it'll just be a waste of a day, and I can't afford to waste a day at this stage in proceedings. Kind of wondering if some of this should be green on top of here, or whether it's just texture. You could maybe add a touch of green if you were feeling fancy. Kind of liking my blue here. Gonna put a little bit of this 70% down again, just to give some depth in there, to make that look as if it's really like what's tucked in behind there. Little penguin's looking at something there too. This is an interesting rock, this one. What's going on there? Just want to blend in some of this a bit better. Get our waterline on the go. Jock's getting a bit huffy beside me. He's in his usual spot. He's just, I don't know whether he's struggling to get comfortable, but he was kind of upside down for a minute there, with everything hanging out, and now he's curled up like a cat, so I don't really know what's going on. Here he comes. Hi, this boy. Are you alright? You just come to say hi because you don't know what to do with yourself. Oh, here comes Pip as well, because she's heard him talking to Jock. Hi, Pip. Have you been sleeping? Hi, everybody. Never a dull moment. That's it, like, she's just barged in, made sure we're all still alive, and she's just gone straight back out again. Yes, we're fine, Pippy, it's okay. Never a dull moment. So if you can hear Jock plodding about. He's quite heavy-footed now as well, which is something that seems to have come with age also. I think it's probably because he is a bit stiff. But, like, you can hear Jock coming a mile away now, and you never used to. You used to turn round and he was there. You're like, whoa. I think that this looks like a little crevice in here. As if this part of the rock's jutting out. Let me make that look, yeah, like that. Exactly like that. The other, just as I've been sort of tiddling along here doing this, the other colour combination that I thought would work really well, and I'm just going to show you this in case any of you want to try it. If you were going to go for more reddish brown rocks, I think that the terracotta, along with one of these warm greys, or even maybe the French greys as well, the terracotta and the sienna brown would be two colours that I think would go really, really well together if you wanted to get like a warmer stone effect. It's funny because I look at a lot of, images on the internet, and I've seen people colour this before, and most people colour it like an icy winter scene, without actually taking the time to realise that this is the Galapagos Islands kind of thing. So I find that quite interesting as well. I'd love to know what all of them are looking at. They all seem to be, fixated on something. I don't know, maybe there's little creatures having a wee party in the rock pools or something. I don't know what goes on down here. Okay, so there we go. There's a good idea. Suggestions in the comments for things that these penguins are looking at. We've got this little guy looking over yonder. This guy's, I don't know what he's looking at down there. But these two here seem to be interested in the same thing that's going on somewhere down there. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments. That would be lovely. Why not? Because I like to make up little stories about what's going on, especially with my own drawings as well. That's like all part and parcel of the fun. Might make this one a little bit darker again, just because we're at this waterline here, and it's looking a little bit choppy down here, or the splishes or whatever they're supposed to be. Yeah, there we go. I'm a bit happier with that. And we can just blend all this out together with the lightest colour. Just, soften it out. Obviously, I've left quite soft transitions here. You can make these rocks look really, really angular by, keeping the lines really straight and not softening and blending them out. And that would look really good as well if you wanted a bit more of a dramatic landscape. I just feel though, if these penguins are going to be dawdling about on these, I think they would be, a lot of the stones would have been washed smooth by the water. When you find a nice smooth pebble on the beach like that, which is one of my favourite things. Again, being a young lady that spent a lot of time by the sea, both at home and at my grandparents as well. We're always on the beach. things seem to get a wee bit more complicated over this side. There's a lot more line work and hatching and things going on here. This little dude's looking at something really interesting. He's craned his neck all the way around. You better watch better not fall off there, sunshine. And in this section here, I think I'm going to make this a bit more nook and cranny-y. How with all the technical descriptions now. I just feel as if I want that to look much more set in the grand scheme of things. So I'm thinking about just the video schedule as well. I'll probably talk a bit more about that in Sunday's video because I'll be a bit better organised and, you know, in what I'm actually doing. But I think there's only going to be probably another 2 weeks worth of videos, and the final videos will be the finishing off of this, and that will let me pack everything else up in the cave. I'm still working on one commission, which I've got another set of pencils out for, but if I could do one more art video, it means I could pack the rest of the art supplies up. I can also start packing stuff up in the shop as well. Again, details on the shop, I'll talk a little bit more at the start of Sunday's video about timings and putting in orders and things, because there are going to be some more items in the stash shop from my own collection this coming Sunday, so you can keep your eyes peeled for that too. I'm trying to do this as sensibly as possible, but there's so many factors now, and it's just like, okay, just, you know, a week at a time, and we'll see how we go. It's quite interesting because my brother moved house last week. It was like a non-event, but his old house and his new house is only like a 10-minute drive between the two. So the moving, although they've got well, my brother's got 3 children, but he's only got 2 that live with him. So although they had quite a lot of stuff to move, because it was only 10 minutes, you know, a 10-minute journey from each, it really just wasn't a big thing. Whereas for us, we're moving like 2 and a bit hours away. So the move is a slightly larger undertaking for us. Despite not having any dependents other than 2 collies. So it's quite interesting because I'd phoned Papa Jem just to see how he was, because obviously he went to help because that's what he does. And Mama Jem helped too, but Papa Jem was right in there, you know, I'll do this and I'll do that. So I'd phoned just to see how he got on and to see if the move was a success. And he was like, yeah, he's like, we got started at like 8:30 in the morning, and you know, we were kind of like done for 3:30, and I'm like, what? Then I'm like, oh, that's right. You kind of forget, like, it doesn't have to, like, moving doesn't have to be this monstrous disaster, especially say when you're not that far apart. We're still trying to figure out, we are getting rid of a lot of stuff. I think I've mentioned this before, but for example, here in the cave, I'm not taking any of the shelving or anything with me. The furniture that is in here has been like hand-me-down furniture, so at some point it has been in a living room or, you know, whatever. And a lot of it's been moved so many times it's unstable now. Like the IKEA Kallax units, they've seen better days. They're kind of wobbly. There's chips out them. There's bits missing. So there's a lot of stuff getting left behind, which will lighten the actual load. But we don't know how many runs with the main moving van we're going to have to do. We're also not taking our sofa with us, as discussed previously, and the sofa takes up a huge chunk of space because it's one of these big like corner sectionals we've got, and it's huge, and it's been an excellent sofa. Like, it's one of my favourite things, but it is time for it to go. I also had a mass book exodus as well. It was very difficult. I had to bite the bullet and get rid of some of my books, which I think I did a fairly good job. I cut my collection down by about 1/3, so you know that's a substantial number of books, because like, you know, my book numbers were in the thousands, so 1/3 of that's a hefty chunk of books. So we're organised. We are organised, but it's just a bit of kind of wait and see. Speaking of wait and see, oh, there we go. That's what our rocks are looking like here, and that is literally 4 pencils. Well, it's actually 3 and a tiny bit, but you can see it's a really nice contrast. Again, I would maybe, even if you were feeling a bit braver or you wanted a bit more contrast in the rocks, you could go to the 50% cool grey. That might be a little bit pale for some of y'all's liking, but I am quite happy with it. And yeah, that's given us a nice bit of progress on this right hand page. Okay, so for next Thursday, I will finish the rocks on this side, so we'll be all matchy-matchy, everything will be nice there. And then we're going to tackle the actual water, so it'll be the underwater rocks and the actual body of water itself. And then in a final video, which might be a Sunday video, we can do all the bits down the bottom here, and obviously colour in our penguins. So thank you very much for coming and hanging out with me today, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you back in in the cave on Sunday for another video. So have a great day everyone, and bye bye for now.